Please be seated. The court is back in session. I note the lead co-lawyer for the civil party is on her feet. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have just read mail by Mrs. Susan Lam sent to us, and she says that regarding civil parties and the co-prosecutors, we have a day and a half to examine this witness, and that we have to share that day and a half. So, since we are two different parties, I don't think we should have to share time. And I think that it would be proper if we were informed sufficiently in advance in future and before the beginning of the examination, because it is very difficult for us civil parties to adapt ourselves without realizing or knowing how much time the co-prosecutors have. And we run the risk of depriving ourselves of the little time left. We have already spent 3 hours, and we still do not know how much time we need. I therefore respectfully submit to the Chamber that we should be informed well in advance of the time we will have, and we will indicate how much time we need. Thank you.
The President, I now hand over to the international co-prosecutor to continue his line of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sotong, I'd like to ask you now some questions about your role as Nuon Chea's messenger and bodyguard. Can you provide a general description to the court of the work you did as Nuon Chea's messenger and bodyguard?
Response. My guard duty was to provide security guard surrounding the compounds where Mr. Nuon Chea worked.
Did you accompany Nuon Chea on trips to the provinces?
Response. Yes, I did.
How often did Nuon Chea travel to the provinces?
It's rather frequent, once every 2 or 3 months.
And did he continue to travel to the provinces the entire period you worked for him?
No, it was only once in a while.
Did he travel throughout the whole country and visit all provinces?
He visited Bat Dambong, Kampung Chnang, Kampung Spư, the East Zone.
And how many people went on these trips to the provinces? How many other people were there in addition to you and Nuon Chea?
Response. Sometimes there were 10 people, and sometimes there were more than that.
Were you a driver, or was there a different person who was the driver for these trips?
There was a different driver.
Did you travel in the same car as Nuon Chea?
No, I drove on the bodyguard's convoy or car.
Was there anyone in the car with Nuon Chea other than his driver?
Response. No, he was in the car alone together with his driver.
Who was the driver who worked for Nuon Chea when you went on these trips to the provinces?
Back then, Yang was his driver. Sot was also his driver. Tung was also his driver. So 3 of them were the drivers.
And did you go with Nuon Chea every time he traveled to the provinces, or were there times when he traveled without you?
No, I was not with him on every trip. We had other people who took the rotate assignment.
Can you tell us, what did Nuon Chea do when he went on these trips to the provinces?
He went to the province to preside over the meeting or to provide training to other cadres.
What type of meetings did he preside over?
Response. They were training course for the head of cooperatives, for example, on how to cultivate rice.
Did Nuon Chea meet with leaders from the regions when he traveled to the provinces?
Response. Yes, he did.
Who were the leaders from the regions that you remember Nuon Chea meeting with on these trips?
To my recollection, they were Sao Phum, Ta Nhum, Ta Pal, Ta Thuch, and others. Cơ, Ta Mok. He frequently met Ta Mok.
When he went to the provinces, did Nuon Chea ever visit dams or other work sites?
Yes, he visited very frequently.
And do you remember any of the areas where Noon Chea went to visit dam or canal sites?
To my recollection, he visited the first January dam and other dams in Koh Kong and Pusat provinces, and a few other places which I cannot recall.
The 1st January dam that you just referred to, where was that located?
Response. It was maybe in Kampong Chnang. I do not remember it well.
Do you remember whether Noon Chea visited a dam that was on the Chanit River near the border of Kampong Thom and Kampong Cham?
Yes, he visited that dam as well.
Do you remember how many times he visited that dam?
I do not remember well, but he may have visited it twice or so.
What did Noon Chea do when he went to visit those dams?
He visited the status of the dam's construction as well as the rice cultivation and the performance of the cooperatives.
Did he meet with the leaders who were responsible for the construction of the dams in those regions?
Yes, he met with them.
When you when you traveled with Noon Chea to the provinces, did he ever go to any pagodas?
No, he never visited a pagoda because there was no monks, no Buddhist monks in those pagodas.
Did he ever go to any pagodas while he was in Phnom Penh?
No, he never visited pagodas even in Phnom Penh because there was no monk in the pagoda. What is the point of going there?
Did you ever hear Noon Chea talk about Buddhism?
No, I had never heard.
During the time you worked for him, did you ever see him participate in any Buddhist ceremonies?
No, I didn't see any.
I want to go back now and ask you about some of the leaders from the provinces that Noon Chea met with. Did Noon Chea travel to Takeo, or did you travel with Noon Chea to Takeo province?
Yes, I did. I went there with him once.
And who would Noon Chea meet with when he went to Takeo?
Response. He met with Tamok.
Where was it that Noon Chea would meet with Tamok? Was it in Takeo Provincial Town, or was it in some other location?
He would meet with him at his house.
Do you remember where Tamok's house was located?
Response: I do not recollect, but his house was further up the provincial towns, and probably it was on the left-hand side of the town. The President: Witness, you are instructed to pause a bit before you respond to the question. You should wait until your mic is on. When you see the light is on, then you should start answering the question. Otherwise, your voice will not get through the system. Prosecutor, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. When Noon Chea went to meet with Tamok, was it just the two of them who met, or were there other persons who also attended those meetings?
I did not know because I was always guarding outside.
Did Noon Chea ever talk to you about Tamok?
No, never did he talk to me about Tamok.
Did you ever see Tamok come to Phnom Penh for meetings with Noon Chea or other leaders of the party in Phnom Penh?
Yes, I saw him coming to meet with Tamok, and particularly to attend the training course.
How often did you see Tamok in Phnom Penh?
Once every 1 or 2 months. It was rather frequent.
And where in Phnom Penh did you see Tamok when he came to visit?
He would come to K1.
You also mentioned that Noon Chea went on trips to the East Zone. Who did he meet with when he went to the East Zone?
He met with Ta Sao Phum.
How often did Noon Chea travel to the East Zone?
It was not that frequent, maybe once every 2 or 3 months.
Where would he meet with Sao Phim when he went to the East Zone?
At Sao Phum's house.
And do you remember where Sao Phim's house was located?
I do not remember.
When Noon Chea went for these meetings with Tamok and Sao Phim, how long would he meet with them? How long did the meetings last?
The meeting would last for 1 or 2 days.
When he went to these meetings, did you see whether he brought any documents with him?
I don't know about this. I don't know what was discussed in the meeting.
Did you ever see Noon Che leave any of those meetings with documents that he brought back to Phnom Penh?
I do not know. He may have had his bag, but I don't know.
Do you remember whether Noon Che made any trips to the East Zone in 1978?
I don't know. I forget.
Do you remember whether there was a period of time when he stopped traveling to the East Zone to meet with Sao Pim?
I cannot recollect.
You also mentioned that Noon Chea would travel to Battambang. Who would he meet with when he traveled to Battambang?
He met with Ta Nyim, who was the chairman of the zone.
And how often did Noon Chea go to Battambang province?
It was not frequent, probably once every 3 or 4 months.
Where is it that Noon Chea would meet with Ta Nim?
Back then, they met somewhere in pagoda, but I cannot recollect the name of that pagoda.
Where was this pagoda located?
It was along the road leading to Angkor. No, it was along the road leading to Siem Reap province.
Was it near Battambang provincial town?
Yes, it was near the provincial town.
And what was this pagoda used for? Were there any monks there?
No, it was that pagoda was vacant.
Could you tell what the pagoda was being used for?
That was an abandoned pagoda.
Do you remember the name of the pagoda?
No, I cannot recollect the name of that pagoda.
Did Nunche ever go to Bante Mianche province?
No, he didn't go to that province.
And did you ever see Tanim come to Phnom Penh for meetings with Nunche or other party leaders in Phnom Penh?
Yes, he would come to Phnom Penh on a regular basis. Normally it was during the Phum Ban time.
And when he would regularly come to Phnom Penh during Chum Ben time, how long would he be in Phnom Penh for?
It varied. Sometimes he stayed in Phnom Penh for 10 days, and sometimes he stayed for 15 days.
And where is it in Phnom Penh that you would see Tanim when he came to visit?
He would go to K1.
Would he stay at K1 for the entire 10 or 15 days that he visited?
Yes, he would stay there until he returned.
And how about Sao Pim? Did you see him come to Phnom Penh for meetings with Noon Chea and the other party leaders?
Yes, it was their routine. He would come to K1 to attend meetings there.
How often did Sao Pim come to K1 for meetings?
I cannot recollect it well, but it may have been once every 2 or 3 months.
One of the other areas that you mentioned Noon Chea would visit was Kampong Chenang. Who would he meet with when he went to Kampong Chenang?
Response: he would only go to the rice field where people farm rice.
Did you ever go with Noon Chea to the airport construction site in Kampong Chenang?
Response: no, I didn't.
And did you go on trips with Noon Chea to Kampong Spoo?
Response: yes, I did.
Who would he meet with when he went to Kampong Spoo?
Response: he would meet Tapal.
Who was Tapal?
Response: Tapal was the secretary of a sector.
Did you ever see Nuon Chea meet with a person named Chu Chet when he went to Kampong Spoo?
អត់ស្គាល់
Response: No.
Where in Kampong Spoo would Nuon Chea meet with Tapal?
ជាផ្ទះ
Response: They met at the Chamkamon mansion.
Could you explain for us where the Chamkar Mon mansion was located?
នៅ
Response: It could have been in Kampong Spoo province, adjacent to the main road.
Can I ask you to clarify, did you mean Chabar Mon?
ចឹងស្កាមនទៅបាមននំពេញ
I think that was Chamkamon because Chabamon is in Phnom Penh instead.
When Nuon Chea would go to Kampong Spoo or other zones, do you remember whether he ever attended zone congresses or zone conferences where other cadres from the region were present?
ខ្ញុំចូលចាំដែរ
Response: I don't think I have a fresh recollection of this because I was on duty at the exterior side of the place.
And when Nuon Chea, on his trips to Kampong Spoo, do you ever remember him going to meetings that were held at a coconut plantation?
ដូចការដាំដូង
Response: Yes.
How often did he go to, how many times did he go to meetings at that coconut plantation?
មិនដល់ចូលចាំ
Response: Though I don't remember the exact frequency of his visit to the place, but I think it could have been 2 to 3 times a year.
And where was that coconut plantation located? Can you tell us the location of it?
អត់បានចំណាំ
Response: I don't remember, but the coconut trees were planted surrounding the mansion.
Was this the same mansion where he met with Tapal?
ផ្ទះស្មោះជាផ្ទះជាហៅថាផ្ទះជាភ័ណ្ឌផ្ទះស្អីខ្ញុំស្គាល់ហ្នឹង
Response: That mansion was a part of the war spoil or assets obtained from the former Lonol soldiers.
And are you able to tell us who all participated in the meetings that were held at the coconut plantation?
ខ្ញុំអត់ស្គាល់ដែរ
Response. I don't remember them all because there were some low-level cadres who also attended the meetings there.
Do you remember whether Noon Chea would give speeches at those meetings?
ខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងដែរ
Response. No, I don't know about this.
Did you ever go with Noon Chea to Kampong Tralak Lu district in Kampong Chenang?
អត់ដល់តោ
Response. No, I didn't. I never know this district.
Did you ever go to Pim commune with him?
អត់បានតោជាមួយ
Response. No, I didn't.
Did Tapal also come to Phnom Penh for meetings with Noon Chea and other party leaders?
ធ្លាប់មកដែរ
Response. Yes, he did.
How often did you see Tapal come to Phnom Penh?
អត់សូវចាំដែរចកា
Response. I don't remember quite well, but I remember having seen him in Phnom Penh 2 to 3 times.
I've asked you already about some trips to dam sites, but did you go on trips with Noon Chea to Kampong Cham, where he met with leaders from that region?
កាលនោះខ្ញុំបានតោទៅ
Response. No, I didn't.
What about Kretchi province? Did you ever go with Noon Chea to Kretchi province?
អត់
Response. Not either.
Did you ever go with him to Mondulkiri or Ratanaskiri?
អត់មានតោនោះទេ
Response. He never went there.
What about Siem Reap province? Did he ever go there?
នោះក៏អត់
Response. No, he didn't. Perhaps he could have gone there on his own without my knowledge.
During the period you worked for Noon Chea, did you ever hear him talk about the Vietnamese?
អត់ដែលលឿននិយាយ
Response. No, but I once heard he was talking about the Vietnamese invasion at the east zone.
Where was it that you heard him talking about the Vietnamese invasion?
អាហ្នឹងគឺផ្សាយទូទៅ
Response. This information could be heard all across the country through radio broadcast.
I just want to make sure I understand. Are you saying you heard Noon Chea talk about the Vietnamese invasion on a radio broadcast? Is that right?
តាមផ្សាយវិទ្យុ
Response. Yes, I did.
And do you remember what year that was?
ថាដល់ឆ្នាំ
Response. It was in 75, 76, and 77.
Did you hear Noon Chea on the radio on other occasions or just that one time?
បាទដល់លឺទៅតាមផ្សាយណាផ្សាយវិទ្យុ
Response. I only heard this information through the radio broadcast.
Where is it that you would hear radio broadcasts during the democratic Kampuchea period? Did you have to go to a certain location in order to hear radio broadcasts?
Objection, Your Honor.
The President, witness, could you please hold on for a moment? Counsel for Noon Chea, you may now proceed.
Your Honor, I heard the witness say that he only heard that one time, the radio broadcast, that one time. And counsel is now suggesting that he heard radio broadcasts over a period of time or over a course of time. Perhaps the question could be rephrased.
Mr. President, I wasn't talking about radio broadcasts of Noon Chea. He's already talked about that. I'm asking him a general question about where one would hear radio broadcasts during the democratic Kampuchea regime.
Well, in that case, it's fine.
The President, witness may now respond to the question by the prosecutor. The President, co-prosecutor, you may repeat the question as witness appears to have forgotten what he was asked.
Yes. My question is, where is it that you would listen to radio broadcasts during the democratic Kampuchea regime?
អាហ្នឹងតាមគេមានវិទ្យុស្ដាប់តាមគេ
Response. We could listen to these radio broadcasts through radio by our colleagues who had a radio, and we listened to the broadcast all together.
Were there any locations where there were speakers so that people could come and listen to radio broadcasts?
There are men.
Response. No, there weren't.
Did you ever travel with Noon Chea outside Cambodia?
Response: Yes, I did. We traveled to China.
How many times did you travel outside the country with Noon Chea? Was it just that one trip, or were there more than one trip?
Response: The interpreter could not really hear the final statement by the witness.
Let me re-ask the question, Mr. President. Did you go with Noon Chea on just one trip, or were there more than one trip outside of Cambodia?
Response: I went there on one occasion only.
And was that trip only to China, or did you also go to any other countries on that same trip?
Response: We traveled all the way to Korea.
And when you say Korea, are you referring to North Korea or South Korea?
Response: North Korea.
How long was this trip that you took with Noon Chea to China and North Korea?
Response: It was a 1-week trip.
Was it 1 week total, or was it 1 week in each country?
Response: 1 week for each country.
How many other bodyguards came with you on this trip to China and North Korea?
There were 3 bodyguards, including me myself. And I don't remember the names of the other one. I remember Sot, but not the other person.
How did you travel from Cambodia to China and North Korea?
Response: We went by Boeing aircraft.
Who did the airplane belong to? Was it a airplane of the Democratic Kampuchea regime?
Response: It belonged to China.
Was this trip the first time you had traveled outside of Cambodia?
Response: Yes, it was. I never went there before.
Was it the first time you had flown on an airplane?
Từ mới tao do thong nó tàu.
Response, yes, it was.
Do you remember how many people were part of the delegation that went on this trip? Was the airplane full of people?
Chỉ bệnh.
Response, the airplane was full of people. There were other passengers, including foreign nationals, whom I don't remember the names.
Do you recall the names of any of the other people who represented Democratic Kampuchea on this trip?
Là
Response, there were two people, a man and a woman, who were the secretary of sectors who went there with us.
Do you remember what part of the country these sector secretaries were from?
Response, no, I cannot recall.
When you left for this trip, did you depart from the Pochitong airport?
Bôi dân trọng.
Response, yes, I did.
Do you remember whether there was a group of leaders who came to the airport to send off the delegation that was going to China?
Bạn chạm ăn khởi.
Response, I don't remember having seen any of them.
Mr. President, to help refresh the recollection of the witness, at this time I would like to show him a document which is E3/76, previously in the case file as D262.45, and the portion of this document that I would like to ask the witness about is at Khmer ERN 00701-871 through 701-872, English ERN 00170-340, and French ERN 00701-861. And it is a September 2nd, 1978 Phnom Penh Domestic Service Report that is entitled, quote, Noon Chea-led delegation departs for PRC to September. If I can give a hard copy of the document to the witness, and we can show that on the screen also.
The President, you may proceed. The court officer is now instructed to take the document from the prosecutor and hand it over to the witness.
Mr. Sottung, are you able to read the first page of that document, or would you like me to read it into the record for you?
ស្ដាប់វិញអត់ចេះអាន
Response, it is better you read it for me, please.
The text of this report from the 2nd of September 1978 states as follows, quote, on 2 September at 1300, a Kampuchean People's Representative Assembly delegation led by Comrade Noon Chea, Deputy Secretary of the KCP Central Committee and Chairman of the Kampuchean People's Representative Assembly Standing Committee, left Phnom Penh by air for an official friendship visit to the PRC at the invitation of the PRC's National People's Congress. Comrade Chairman of the State Presidium Kusampan, Comrade Deputy Prime Minister for Foreign Affairs Ing Sari, Comrade Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs Vorn Vet, Comrade Public Health Minister Chun Thun, Comrade Minister for Social Affairs Ing Tarit, Comrade Minister for Propaganda, Education and Culture Yun Yat, and many other cadres from various ministries and departments were on hand to send off and to extend best wishes to Comrade Chairman Noon Chea and his delegation for a successful visit. My first question for you is, does this refresh your recollection as to the timing of your trip with Noon Chea to China? Did you leave for that trip on the 2nd of September 1978?
Man.
Response, yes, I did.
And do you recall the list of people that I read being present at the airport to send off the delegation?
Response, no, I do not recollect these names.
During the period that you worked for Noon Chea, how often did you see Ing Sari or Kusampan?
គាត់មកដែរយូរមកម្ដង
Response, they would come every now and then.
Where is it that they would come, where you would see them?
តគ្រឿងកមួយ
Response, K1.
Now, let me ask you a few more questions about your trip to China and North Korea. Where was the first, do you remember the first location that you visited after you departed Cambodia on the 2nd of September 1978?
ខ្ញុំចាំតែចុះក្រុមរៀបការ
Response, I remember landing in Beijing, and a short while later he was visiting the rural areas.
When you landed at the airport in Beijing, were you met by a group of Chinese leaders?
មាន
Response: Yes, we were.
And in addition to visiting the countryside, what else did Noon Che do during his visit to Beijing or Peking?
Response: He went to the steel factory, and the factory producing pipes, and the factory producing juice, fruit juice.
Did you visit the tomb of Mao Zedong?
បានទៅមើលដែរ
Response: Yes.
Did the leaders of China host banquets for Noon Chea while you were there?
មាន
Response: Yes, it did.
Were you present at those banquets?
បានចូលរួមដែរ
Response: Yes, I was.
And do you recall any of the locations where these banquets were held in your trip, during your trip to China?
ខ្ញុំ
Response: I don't remember those locations.
Do you recall a welcome banquet that was hosted at the Great Hall of the People the day after you arrived in Beijing?
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interject, but I just wonder.
The President, the witness, could you hold on counsel for Noon Chea? You may now proceed.
As I was saying, I'm sorry to interject, but I wonder if we're straying outside the area of communication structures of DK, going into Chinese banquets, visit to Mao Zedong's tomb, etc., etc. Perhaps we could come back to the area of focus for this week's questioning.
Mr. President, if I may respond, the Noon Chea defense team so far has not been the type who would agree to facts. I am eliciting some of the details of this trip, details that may also be confirmed by reviewing some of the media reports, so that should the Noon Chea team seek to challenge the testimony of this witness, it is very clear that the information he is providing is correct. So that is the reason I'm asking some of the questions. In addition, the activities of Noon Chea and who he met with during his trip to China also reflect his role and responsibilities, which is part of the case.
I don't dispute that the last point, however, it's not relevant to the segment of this trial, which is communication structure. In any event, I don't think it's necessary to go through every single thing that this witness may or may not have given prior testimony on simply to establish that he's being consistent. We do need to stay within the limits of relevance. I think we do need to stay within the limits of relevance to a certain extent. I just wonder how much longer this is going to go on.
If I may say one more thing, I think counsel is under a mistaken impression that this questioning is limited to the communication structure. When we are questioning witnesses, we are entitled to question them on the entire scope of case 002/01, which includes the roles of the accused. And one of the roles of the accused here is Noon Chea's role as a representative of Democratic Kampuchea on an official trip to China.
The President. Objection by the Defense Counsel for Nuon Chea on the last question is sustained. So the witness is directed not to respond to the last question posed by the prosecution. The time is now appropriate for the day adjournment, but before the adjournment, the Chamber wishes to get the impression from the prosecution as to how much time do you need to put question to this particular witness, so that the Chamber has the basis to decide as to what time to be allocated to the civil party lawyers. And we will decide on that time allocation based on that indication.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assuming that because there was very little questioning of the witness this morning, I think we counted probably that there was only a total of 15 minutes. I think we will be able to work within the time limits that have been established. I expect that I will be able to finish by noon tomorrow, which would mean that the prosecution would use just a little bit more than one day, so assuming that our day and a half doesn't include the entire morning today, where very little time was used questioning the witness, I think we will be able to finish within the time that's been assigned. But I would expect I would be finished certainly by lunch tomorrow.
President, how about the lead co-lawyer for the civil parties? How much time do you envisage that you would need to put question to this witness?
We believe we will need a minimum of 2 hours, or perhaps 3.
The President, how about the defense teams, starting from the defense team for Nuon Chea?
Thank you, Your Honor. We imagine we'd need about half a day between Major Sonarun and myself.
The President, how about the defense team for Ieng Sari? Mr. Angadam. Mr. President, we will need around 1 hour or little over 1 hour. The President, thank you very much for your indication. So the last team, last defense team for Kilsumpon, could you please indicate the time you may need? Council. Mr. President, thank you. We need around 1 hour or less than 1 hour. The President, thank you very much, all parties, for your indication of the times that you need to put question to the witness. The time is now appropriate to adjourn for the day, and the Chamber will adjourn, and the examination of this witness will continue tomorrow, and if necessary, we will extend it to Friday in order to conclude the hearing of this witness. Mr. Sotung, please be informed that the Chamber invites you to come again tomorrow morning, and at the same time, the Duty Council is also invited to attend the hearing tomorrow during the hearing of the testimony of this witness. court officer is instructed to assist this witness to work with the vessel in order to facilitate his transport and accommodation, and make sure that this witness is brought before us before 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And security guards are instructed to bring the accused to the detention center and bring them back to this courtroom before 9. The court is adjourned.